Coming up next, the Bookening talks about what it's going to do tomorrow. And after that, hey everybody, welcome to the Bookening. We're not actually doing a full episode this week. Let me just rip that Band-Aid off right away.
Ouch, Nathan, that hurt.
Yeah, I did not mean that metaphorically. I meant I was going to rip a Band-Aid off of Brandon.
A big one. It was like a full body Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now hairless.
Yeah.
I took it pretty well, actually.
Yeah, no, I think Jake is in the other room right now reading some spooky stories for Halloween. Beginning today, right, Brandon? We're going to do a weird thing where we're going to do 2 mini-sodes a week.
We are.
For this week, next week, and the next week. So we can talk about a total of 5 scary Halloween stories. Plus, if you factor in this intro, it'll be a total of 6 mini-sodes. New mini-sodes each Tuesday, and then on the regular Wednesday, starting today, if that makes sense. I hope all this makes sense. So you're going to get this intro today, then you're going to get a discussion of a story tomorrow, a short story, and then a discussion of another story next Tuesday, then a discussion of another story next Wednesday, and so on, Tuesdays and Wednesdays until the end of October. Now, we thought we'd announce them, though, ahead of time so that you could read along if you wanted to.
We are going to do that.
That's what we're doing right now.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
So get out a pen and paper.
Mm-hmm. Prepare to write with that
Pencil
pen.
if you want.
Now, let's just to provide a little context. Last year...
There's a marker and a whiteboard.
You can do a marker on a whiteboard if you want.
You could write it in the sand outside your house.
You could write it on your flesh. It's Halloween. You could carve it into your flesh, or you could carve it into a pumpkin. I would recommend against the latter, or the former.
I guess
Definitely don't carve it into a pumpkin.
If anybody carves it into a pumpkin, send it to us, and we will post it on all our social media platforms.
Yeah, if anybody wants to make any fun Halloween-related art for the Bookening.
If you do our faces in a pumpkin.
You can do our faces in a pumpkin.
Be awesome.
And what Brendan means by that is come to our house, sneak in, carve off our faces, and stuff them into a pumpkin.
That's not what I mean.
No, that's not what you meant?
No, of course it is.
Okay, well, I always go for the most obvious meaning when somebody says something.
Yeah.
It's my principle of rhetoric.
That is definitely what I meant. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, okay, so last year, and by the way, folks, I'm not doing any Halloween puns this
Halloween season.
This go around.
Yeah, no, you're not. I just thought of something too, Nathan. If somebody does that, they come to our house.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a podcast, we're faceless, and then we'll literally also be faceless. Because on a podcast, we're figuratively faceless because they can't see us.
Mm-hmm.
And now our figurative lives will meet with our physical lives in a true essence of horror.
Yeah, let's make this happen.
Yeah.
Metaphors should always be literalized.
I think so,
whenever possible. That is.
That's why I have been campaigning to get NASA to send up rosy red fingers to the sun so that every time it lifts up over the horizon every morning, we'll see the rosy red fingers of dawn, and it will be literal rosy red fingers.
It's why I have been desperately buying up wine and dumping it into the sea so that it'll be the wine dark sea.
Literal.
Like old Homer talks about, because I'm like, actually, old homeboy, the sea, it ain't that wine dark. It's usually kind of a pale blue color, a waterish color, if you will. But I want to see this wine dark sea. So I dump whole cases of wine.
All of his extra earnings go into this project.
And still, the sea remains not wine colored.
It's probably because it's going to take a lot of wine. But the fish in the the fish in the area where you do this generally report a much happier life.
Yeah.
For a little while at least.
Yeah.
So anyways.
But I don't know. It feels like maybe a fool's errand. Like it's going to take a lot of wine. But folks, if you're out there, if you have wine and you want to dump it into the sea, let's do it. Do it for Homer. Hashtag do it for Homer.
Do it for Homer. Send us a picture of you doing it.
Send us a picture of you dumping wine into the sea. We're all about literalizing metaphors on the
We are the Literalizing Metaphor Society, the LMS.
Not the Halloween Puns Society, folks.
Nope.
We're going to do 5 days of episodes, which is why you're getting kind of a short shrift this time. And notice I didn't say shroud shrift or anything like that. Not that would be a good Halloween pun
that
anyway.
That would have been awful, but it wouldn't be the first.
Maybe like the second. I mean,
maybe the second.
I made 1 or 2 bad Halloween puns in my time.
You're generally pretty great.
Yeah.
At those sorts of things.
So, what was I talking about? Oh, last year you guys made no end of fun of my stories.
Yeah, we thought that they were pretty ridiculous.
And I chose some of the classics of the genre.
And time has improved my opinion of one or two of them. I've done the Red Mask with students now multiple times.
By the Red Mask, I assume you mean Mask of the Red Death?
Oh yeah, Mask of the Red Death. That's what I meant.
Time has really reproved your
Not my memory. The Mask of the Red Death, yeah. I kind of appreciate that story now.
It's a fun story.
It is a fun story.
High schoolers.
And of course,
I think we all loved the Willows even at the time.
The Willows was great. And then the other one about the Shredny Vashtar.
Yeah.
I was going to say the other one, but that's it's not Ricky Tikki Tavi.
No. Old Shredny Vashtars. a little bit.
Yeah, different than Ricky Tikki.
Different personality.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's like Ricky Tikki Tavi with a dark side.
That'd be a great extended universe, though. I would love to watch the showdown between Tavi and Vashtar.
Tavi versus Vashtar.
Dawn of Justice.
We have the same mother, Vashtar.
Yeah, Shredny Vashtar, I feel like once it's a nice sort of what's the word? Reference point or something. It's just it's a fun thing to have in your mind and to bring up occasionally for whatever reason. But the H.P. Lovecraft didn't get any love last year. His and I miscalculated. I should have gone with something from the Cthulhu mythos, but instead I did that stupid story about unhappy as he who sits in the dank, moldy halls of his ancestors.
With lots of books. There were lots of books on those walls. That was cool.
Yeah. And he crawls up, and it turns out he's been in a grave the whole time.
Ooh, a grave with books in it.
Yeah. Well, it's like some dank, weird underground castle.
Yeah.
Anyway, you guys didn't care for that one. What was the other one we did last year? I wish I'd defended this a little bit more because you guys were pretty hard on it.
Which one?
Hawthorne.
Young Goodman Brown.
Young Goodman Brown. I mean, it's a classic of high school reading.
Were we hard on it?
Yeah, I think we were a little hard on. You guys were like, "Ooh, the world's really a crappy place. Nice insight, Hawthorne."
Yeah, we were hard on his insight. The story itself is fine.
Yeah, it's a good spooky story, and
sounds like I was just putting on a show last year. I don't think that hard about any of these stories except the one about the man in the cave. That was just bad.
The Lovecraft, yeah, that was pretty bad. That was from Lovecraft's period where he was really overwriting. He was always a little purple, but he was deep, dark purple.
But even then, it's still fun in its own way.
Yeah. But it's pulpy and not the best. Anyway, you guys were like, these stories are stupid. None of them... we've just proved that this is an entirely false characterization, but I'm going to stick with it anyway.
Yep.
You guys were like, these stories are stupid, and so are you, Nathan. Thanks for choosing such lame, unscary stories, loser.
Yeah, that's definitely how I felt and still feel right now.
Yeah. So I decided to, so last year, think about it, Hawthorne, Poe, Algernon Blackwood's The Willows is a much anthologized, much loved classic, whether you knew Blackwood before that or not. He's, that is a classic. That is one of 10 stories that are just like part of the canon, I think, of supernatural literature. Monkey's Paw, one or two, pick your favorite Poes, and then The Willows is right up there. The Willows is a great story. So I have no shame about doing that. But my point is, I was trying to hit the classics. Some Hawthorne, some Poe, some, we didn't do Washington Irving, but we could have. This year, I am not doing that at all because those guys were like, classics are stupid.
That's what we think.
What did Poe and Lovecraft know about writing scary stories?
I hate the classics.
The Willows, more like the
Sillos.
The Sillos. That's what they said. I don't know what it meant, but
yeah,
I guess sill as in silly.
Yeah. The Sillios.
Yeah. More like the Cheerios.
Yeah. Cheerios. Cheerio.
So this year, I decided to simply choose stories not based on their status as... I'd say these are all classic stories, but I wasn't trying to hit any of the big names. Well, except for one exception. I was just trying to pick stories that I thought were good and were resonant and were actually scary or moving or interesting in and of themselves. Like, I was going for quality over, what's the word for like heritage, or like nobody's going to be scared by a Young Goodman Brown.
No, just like you're not going to really be scared by Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's meant to be a little bit funny too, right?
Yeah, I think Washington Irving just definitely had a cheek
and tongue.
A cheek and tongue. Yeah, he liked to keep his cheek in his tongue.
Yeah, it's creepy.
It's creepy, yeah.
Like those rats that eat through your cheek in 1984.
Yeah, I don't like rats that eat through your cheek.
I would have given up Julia too for that.
Oh yeah, easy. I mean, I would have given up Julia anyway because Julia sucks.
Yeah, she does.
Not an interesting heroine at all. But
to be fair, neither was Winston Smith.
No, I suppose that's part of the point. But
I didn't like the point.
Yeah,
but we've already talked about this.
Wait, have we already talked about it when this comes out?
Maybe not.
No, we haven't already talked about this.
We're gonna talk about it.
And actually, we haven't already talked about it in real life. Brandon was trying to think ahead.
Yeah,
but
so therefore I lied and didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna take that back.
Yeah, maybe I'll edit it out. Make you look smarter.
You won't.
Hey, I do edit things out to make us all look smarter, but not that one because it's fun to leave it in. So anyway, I decided not to go for what is the word I want for when something is part of the canon or classic or anyway, I decided not to bring those things into consideration. I decided to choose some lesser known authors, some lesser known stories, at least very well known, very frequently anthologized stories within the weird fiction community and to fans of such things, but stuff that maybe Brandon and Jake wouldn't have necessarily heard of, but stuff that I thought that they might actually enjoy more. And Brandon, you have actually read these stories at this point. Would you say that I did a better job of picking stories that were at least interesting?
Yes. Yeah, these were definitely better.
Okay.
I think people will like them.
Yes. Let me go ahead and announce them so that people can read them in preparation. So first of all, we are going to do just a nod towards the greats, towards the classics. We're going to do The Telltale Heart by Poe. Jake and Brandon were both pretty like, what is this? Brandon has since come around on The Mask of Red Death, but you guys definitely, I don't think either one of you had read it before, and you didn't really seem to consider it to be one of like Poe's iconic or best stories. I would still argue that it is one of his iconic and best stories, but certainly it's iconic, but I think it's one of his best. But we decided to go with a more mainstream Poe this year, The Telltale Heart, arguably the most, and this is only anecdotal, but it seems like in my life I've seen this one most frequently anthologized and perhaps the most beloved. This or The Cask of Amontillado, or maybe The Fall of the House of Usher, or The Pit and the Pendulum. I mean, okay, Poe wrote some popular stories, but The Telltale Heart's right up there at the top, and one of the first really scary stories that I read. And so we're going to read that. Next, we will be reading a very short story by Gene Wolfe called The Packer House Method.
Such a strange story.
People should be excited about this one, right, Brandon?
Oh, they should be something about it.
Well, it's an interesting story. I mean,
it's short. It has that going for it.
Oh, boy. The Packer House. Gene Wolfe is the person that Ursula Le Guin says is our Melville. She says he is the Melville of science fiction, fantasy, and horror writers. You wouldn't know it from reading this story, I don't think. Or maybe you would. I don't know. He's a very interesting, very intricate writer. And
He's a Catholic.
He's a Catholic. He was an industrial engineer. Anyway, we'll talk more about him. But the fact is, he came up with these really intricate, elaborate, interesting scenarios. And this story has a little bit of that flavor. And I think people will enjoy it. Then we're going to do The Girl with the Hungry Eyes. The Girl with Hungry Eyes by Fritz Lieber. Lieber, of course, invented the term sword and sorcery and basically helped invent the sword and sorcery genre. Pretty famous.
I didn't know that.
Mid-century horror and fantasy guy. Yeah. The Girl with Hungry Eyes, one of his best stories. So
not a sword and sorcery story.
Not a sword and story. No, neither swords. Arguably, maybe some sorcery, but definitely no swords. Then we are going to do probably the two that I'm most excited to talk about. We're going to do a Patricia Highsmith story. Patricia Highsmith, I think Graham Greene called her the Queen of Unease or something like that. She is a very peculiar, cold, creepy woman. Most famous for writing the stories that the movies that you've heard of probably are seeing. The Talented Mr. Ripley and Strangers on a Train are both based on Highsmith works.
Yeah, I mean, this story is not going to be horror in the sense that most people think horror.
No, but in terms of creating an uneasy mood and sustaining it and hitting people with a nice little gut punch, this is something. But yeah, Patricia Highsmith doesn't do straight up supernatural stuff, generally speaking. Then we're going to do something that I guarantee most people haven't heard of, called Singing My Sister Down. This is a very frequently anthologized, much loved weird fiction story of the last 20 years by an Australian author. I believe she's Australian, called Margot Lanigan. We're going to do that just because it's a good example of the more innovative, weird, creepy, weird fiction. Something that's not quite, it's not supernatural fiction in the sense of spooks and goblins. It's also not suspense, murder fiction like your Patricia Highsmith. It's just weird and kind of sad and packs a real punch. So, yes, those are the stories. I think you can find them all online if you're the kind of person that knows how to find these things online. Anything else they need to know, Brandon?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, happy Halloween. Happy screamy reading, folks. We'll be back tomorrow with the first of our minisodes on Telltale Heart, and then we'll be joining you Tuesdays and Wednesdays for the rest of October, each time with another story, in case that wasn't clear earlier.
Ooh, spooky.
Stories. Gories. Nope. Not going to do any Halloween puns. That's the Nathan Scarantee.